In this video, we're going to take a deeper look into the PPSH-41 SMG and compare it to some of the more popular SMGs inside Warzone, the MAC-10 and the Bullfrog. If you enjoy weapon stat breakdowns, weapon comparisons and overall tips and tricks for Warzone, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as we try to reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers, and also click the link in the description and subscribe to our second channel. We have been making shorts over there regarding Season 3 as well. This video is going to break down the stats for the PPSH-41, the updated MAC-10 stats because they did change the damage profile on that gun as well, and also compare it to the Bullfrog. So we're going to compare all three of these weapons and break down each individual stats. But the first thing I do want to go over is the best class setup that we use to compare all three of these guns. So on screen now we have the PPSH-41. Now in my class setup videos I was using a different class setup to what I'm going to show you just now. And the reason for that is because with this class setup I'm going to show you, I'm trying to make it fair in terms of attachments across the board for all of these guns to make sure we're getting really accurate testing. So we're using the GRU suppressor, we're using the task force barrel, which is what I left out in my previous videos. But like I said, this is just to get some fair and accurate testing. Then we used the 71 round drum because that seems to be the best magazine, and we'll talk a bit more about that in just a moment. Then we used the Serpent Wrap, and lastly the PKM stock. Moving on into the MAC-10 now, we used the agency suppressor, the task force barrel once again to make sure this testing is consistent, the Stanag 53 round drum, the Serpent Wrap, and then the Raider stock or the combat stock. It doesn't really matter, but we went with the Raider stock for this one. Lastly, we did a very similar thing with the Bullfrog as well. So we used the GRU suppressor, the task force barrel, the Stanag 85 round mags, then we use the Serpent Wrap of course, and lastly the PKM stocks. I feel like this works a little bit better on the Bullfrog. This is the three class setups that we use to compare all three of these guns. Now you're all probably wondering to yourself, what exactly is the best barrel attachment for this gun? And I'll tell you that it kind of is the task force, even though we said not to use it in previous videos. Now, you don't really need the best bullet velocity with an SMG because you're going to be using it at close to medium range. But after testing this gun a little bit, you do need the bullet velocity bonus on this gun. And what I'll show you just now is all the barrel attachments as well as their bullet velocity values. Now, some of the barrels like the Cavalry Lancer don't actually change bullet velocity, so those won't really matter too much. But the ones we're focusing on here are the extended barrel, the reinforced heavy, the Ranger, and the task force. So the base bullet velocity for this gun is 340 meters per second, and that is so slow. Even for an SMG in this game, that is really slow bullet velocity. So it was really weird to me that this gun actually had that slow bullet velocity. Maybe I didn't just notice it all that much when I was using it in Rebirth, but in terms of actual Warzone, you could definitely notice this bullet velocity. But then for the extended barrel, you get 516 meters per second bullet velocity, which is still not the best. The reinforced heavy gives you the most bullet velocity along with the task force barrel at 581, and the Ranger barrel gives you exactly the same bullet velocity as the extended barrel. But let's take a look at the overall handling stats for these guns now, because I want to see how this gun performs against the MAC-10 and the Bullfrog. So on screen just now, you'll see the handling stats for all three of these weapons. We have the PPSH on the left, the MAC-10 in the middle, and the Bullfrog on the right. You can see the rate of fire for the PPSH sits in between, quite nicely between the MAC-10 and the Bullfrog. A 900 round per minute fire rate is about the same as the Modern Warfare MP5, so it's still a decent fire rate on this gun. The ADS speed on the PPSH with the fully stacked attachments is 200 milliseconds, which is actually a decent ADS time. Again, this is going to be slightly slower than the MAC-10, but slightly faster than the Bullfrog, so it sits again nicely in between those two guns. The magazine size again sits nicely in between the MAC-10 and the Bullfrog at a magazine size of 71 rounds, and the reload time on those 71 round mags in white are 1.8 seconds, and then with the regular 55 round mags, the reload time is also 1.8 seconds, so you should definitely use the 71 round mags if you're going for this gun. It doesn't really hurt your ADS all that much either, as you can see from the ADS speed from the overall weapon. And then lastly, with bullet velocity, now if you stack all of these guns with task force and the agency or GRU suppressor, these are the bullet velocity values you'd get. So it's 734 meters per second on the PPSH, 697 on the MAC-10, and the Bullfrog has the best bullet velocity at 872. The other thing I do also want to show you is actually the recoil pattern as well. And again, the PPSH does really well when it comes to recoil, but I'll pull up the chart on screen just now so you can see that. Again, this is the recoil chart with the fully stacked attachments on all of these guns. This was done at a 15-meter distance, as you can see. And the PPSH has a kind of curvy recoil pattern, is probably the best way to explain this. And keep in mind, this is the worst possible case for the recoil because you're using the task force barrel, no under barrel grips, and this is the recoil pattern you get. So the PPSH doesn't really have that bad of a recoil pattern, especially at close range. This is super easy to manage, especially if you pull down on your analog stick. The MAC-10 again doesn't really have that hard of a recoil pattern to manage, even without any underbarrels as well. So again, both of these guns can be managed very easily. The Bullfrog can be managed the absolute easiest because it has the least horizontal recoil and it pretty much goes upwards and to the left very slightly. So in terms of recoil, the Bullfrog definitely has the best recoil pattern, but all of these guns below 15 or 20 meters are going to be super easy to manage. So as you can see, the PPSH, in terms of all of its stats, kind of fits nicely between the MAC-10 as well as the Bullfrog. And in terms of the recoil pattern, it's really easy to manage. So is there any downsides to this gun? And the last thing, of course, we need to take a look into is that time to kill. The next section of this video is taken from TrueGameData.com, and a link to all of their stuff will be in the description down below. But I wanted to show you the time to kill chart for all three of these guns. We've got the Bullfrog in the cyan line, the PPSH in the magenta line, and the MAC-10 in the orange line. And this is the updated damage profile for the MAC-10 as well. So this is going to be a slower TTK than what we're used to with the MAC-10. But in terms of that overall time to kill, you can see here that the Bullfrog actually now has the fastest TTK out of all of the SMGs that we're talking about just now. It's not the fastest TTK in all of Warzone, but it's the fastest out of the ones we're looking at. So it has a time to kill up close of 559 milliseconds. The MAC-10 now has a time to kill of 588 milliseconds, which is about 40-ish milliseconds more than what it was previously. And then the PPSH has the slowest time to kill at 651 milliseconds. Now, this was not something I actually expected from the PPSH. I expected this to have a faster time to kill from when I used it, but I just think I was landing a lot more shots because the recoil was quite low. But one thing I definitely did notice is that the damage drop-off wasn't that significant with the PPSH than it was with some of these other guns, because you could definitely feel that the damage drops off with the other weapons. In terms of time to kill values, the Bullfrog is now the best, and that is quite weird because it's also the most accurate gun out of the bunch. So if you're looking for the most accurate, best time to kill gun, and it has the best bullet velocity as well, the Bullfrog is your best option. Now, the time to kill isn't really quick in this game anymore, so it's not like it's going to fry enemies like super quick. And the PPSH does have an open bolt delay as well, so that's factored in within this too. Another thing I want to quickly show you is adding in the LC10. This is a popular SMG that a lot of people have been using with the new Rebirth map, and then now moving on into the new update. This has a time to kill of 608 milliseconds, so it doesn't kill as fast as the Bullfrog or the MAC-10, but it does kill faster than the PPSH. But then the damage again drops off further than the PPSH. So if you're using this gun as sniper support, you can kind of get away with the PPSH because it's quite accurate at a distance and you still get a lower time to kill. But if you're using this SMG for what it's supposed to be used for, which is below 20 meters, then the PPSH is definitely not the best. So what can we take away from this comparison? So first of all, the PPSH doesn't have the best bullet velocity, of course. Until you stack attachments on it, then it becomes pretty viable. Overall movement is pretty good with this gun, and overall handling is decent with this gun as well. It's very similar to the rest of the SMGs. Recoil is pretty straightforward to manage as well, even without any underbarrel attachments. But the only place this gun gets let down is the TTK, because as much as I wanted this gun to be pretty good, and it was decent in the Rebirth maps when I was playing Kingslayer, but that was without any armor plates, or with only one armor plate. But when you do have 3 armor plates equipped, this gun just takes way too long to kill in my opinion, and that is why I'm going to have to recommend the Bullfrog. The Bullfrog now has a decent time to kill comparing it to the other SMGs. It has an 85 round mag, overall movement's pretty good, and to be fair, the build that I showed you in this video isn't the optimal build for this gun. If I was to show you the optimal build for the Bullfrog, you'll still get even better stats, and what I would focus on mainly is actually hipfire. So I would get rid of these attachments here. I would put on the bruiser grip and put on either the steady aim laser or the 5mW laser, depending on which you prefer. And I think this is the optimal build for the Bullfrog because you're going to be using it at close range, so you do want that hipfire accuracy there as well. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave us a like. Also subscribe to help us reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers. And we will be comparing the new sniper rifle to the Kar 98 in a later on video today. And make sure you subscribe to our second channel as we do make shorts on all these stat updates as well as class setups. And thank you very much for watching.